This is the Voice of Early Childhood podcast. Hello everyone, welcome to the Voice of Early Childhood podcast. My name is Angelica Celinska. I am the founder of the Voice of Early Childhood and also the host. And today I have with me Greshma Momaya on the episode. Thank you so much, Greshma, for coming onto the podcast.
You're most welcome. I'm super excited to be on the podcast today.
Yeah, it's brilliant to finally have you on. And we've chatted a little bit about this topic, which is all around gender equality in early childhood. And Greshma, who is principal of early years and a K-12 school, will be really exploring this topic with us and given some examples from home practice as well. So it'll be really interesting to unpick this with practical examples and not just kind of the, theoretical aspects. So I'll let you get started, Greshma, by maybe introducing yourself a little bit more on exactly what you do.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am from India and I've been working in the education industry for last 17 years. I started my journey as a teacher in early years and then in primary grades. And then for close to about 8 years, I was the principal of the early years. And now currently I am the principal of a K-12 school. So K-12 school means a school right from pre-primary, that is nursery or kindergarten, up till grade 12. So we are a CBSE and a Cambridge board school. And over my, so many years of experience, I have trained close to 2,500 teachers and been associated with many teacher training institutes. And every educator has their own why am I an educator, or why am I in this field? And I have two whys. Okay, one is to spread awareness about how we need to communicate with our children, and the second is to spread awareness about gender inequality in classrooms. So that's why I think we chose this topic, and I'm super excited to be on this podcast.
Fantastic. Thank you for that introduction. And so, yeah, in terms of gender equality, we're really going to be unpicking the subtle biases ingrained in early childhood education and talking about creating that gender equal atmosphere and inclusive classroom. So I guess we'll begin by talking about the fact that you mentioned in your article, Greshma, understanding gender simplicity in complexity. I really like that term that you use, because then you expand on it by saying, actually, we overcomplicate gender and think children don't understand gender at an early age. They don't really understand the complexities there. But they do have that awareness and the knowledge, and we already kind of give them all of this, unfortunately, some kind of gender stereotypes and preconceived ideas from an early age and from everything that they see around us, no matter how much we try to kind of really iron those inequalities out. But you also talk about children's natural curiosities, and that's really important to not squash and actually to really ensure that we, I guess, expand on those curiosities and take them further.
Right. So, like you said, yes, children do not really understand gender. The basic recognition of the gender, that is, children start to notice about, the physical differences between boys and girls, such as hairstyles, the clothing, the body features by the age of, say, 2 to 3 years. Then comes gender identity, that, okay, I am a boy, I am a girl. That happens somewhere between 3 to 5 years. And then also your awareness of gender roles, right, come into picture at 4 to 6 years, which is generally our early years. And in early years, what happens is, when we are doing the topic of my family, right? Even today, I think in most of the classrooms across the world, we still teach that the role of a mother is to cook food and take care of the family, vis-a-vis the role of the father is to earn money and take care of the family. So unknowingly what we are doing is, we are sowing the seed of gender roles in the minds of children right in early years. Okay, when they are just getting aware of gender roles, we are sowing that seed of gender inequality. So it is not so complex, but we are making it more complex for children by making it stereotyping with gender. I was going on the observation, and there was this playtime happening, and the teacher was having a very general conversation with the child. It was a new academic year, so teacher was also trying to kind of build relation with the child. And the teacher asked her, okay, which is your favorite color? And she was asking this question to a girl. And before the child could respond, the teacher said, oh, let me guess, I think pink is your favorite color. Okay, so again, what we are doing is we are associating a color to a particular gender, and these are all our own, gender biases or thoughts that we have. Also, what happens, I think, pick up any flashcards. Okay, we are doing community helpers or people in neighborhood or people who help us, where we are introducing them to community helpers like doctor, nurse, teacher, all of this. The doctor is always shown as a male in the flashcard, and the nurse is always shown as a female. The teacher is always shown as a female. So again, what we are doing is very unknowingly and unintentionally, we are kind of saying that, okay, boys, the doctors can only be boys, or the boys can only be doctors, the girls can only be nurse, and we are stereotyping it.
And of course, that's not the case. We all know that. But for the children who are in early childhood, even if they are 2-year-olds, I know you said, they usually tend to kind of build gender understanding of gendered roles around 4, but actually many children may experience that so much earlier, especially depending on the communities they're around, the families, the society kind of they're in. They may experience this, well, straight away from birth, really. But they don't necessarily have that understanding outside in the world, that, oh, okay, of course we can be whoever we want to be, and there's these opportunities. What they start to see straight away is, if all I can see is that doctors are all male and all teachers are female and all cooks are female in these books that I'm seeing, on these flashcards, like you say, then that is straight away building their perception, building those stereotypes, building those gendered roles for them. And then it becomes harder for us to break them down, when we really try to support children with this. So like you say, unknowingly. So a lot of the time, these gender biases can be subconscious that we put upon children, and then we try to fix it. But actually, it's our fault that these gendered kind of biases have come to be from such young children who don't necessarily naturally wouldn't have these gendered biases.
Right. And there are many things, I've observed, even our fairy tales. Pick up any fairy tale. Yeah. The female character is always kind of, even Cinderella as a story, is always beautified, pink lips and rosy cheeks and, blue eye and, long hair, fair skin. So we are unknowingly putting a seed in their mind that girls have to look pretty always. The girls have to be fair skin. The girls have to have pink lips,
and they have to be princesses, or this is kind of, this is what's attractive, this is their role, this is what they should look up to, and almost like this is a role model for them who is a princess rather than a scientist or a doctor or a firefighter.
Right. I remember we had a book stall in our school, in my previous school, and this is a big publishing company which I don't want to name it. They have a pink color book for girls. Okay, where they also describe the quality, and the child has to tick on the girl, and all of that, and the complete features are high heels, polished nails. This is actually a book for say about the age group of 8 to 10 years old. Yeah. So again, in those ages also, we are trying to tell them that, okay, beautification is all we need,
Or we need to aim for,
So
strive for.
yeah, like girls have to wear heels and all of that. So again, we are very fixating on how the physical appearance should be. And again, this happens in early years. Okay, when I have again seen this in many classrooms, when generally in early childhood, early years classroom, the teacher is always welcoming the children or greeting the children, and they say that, oh, you look so cute, or you look so pretty, yeah, I love your dress. It's okay to sometimes give them like a comment on it, but I think if your comments are constantly on the physical appearance, then this is what they will see in others when they meet
Definitely.
them.
And so it's
Yeah,
like
so
we're really emphasizing that beauty is portrayed through those physical features and not necessarily cognitive, your character. So maybe giving children credit on their character, on them as a
yes.
person, and not their looks, not their clothes, things like that, then that will really help them to, and I guess it really helps them to build their own self-esteem and confidence in themselves as a person, and not in those external things that they need to seek out for you to give them any credit, attention, love, compassion, almost like saying, if you do this, if you wear this, then we will give you love, care, credit, attention. Actually, if you are just you in your most simple way, your character, then we're not going to notice that. And it's that kind of message, isn't it?
Yeah, we are giving very mixed messages to children then. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's all about us as educators reflecting on everything that we say, everything that we do, constant reflection. I know this is something that you really focus in on in your article as well. And is this something that you encourage your team to do in your settings, in your school?
Yeah. So in my current school also, our curriculum is very neutral gender. Okay, when I say that, when we are introducing children to the famous personalities or to scientists and authors and sportsmen people, we are ensuring that we are showing a male famous personality, a male and a female equally. Okay, so that is one thing that we are keeping a very rigorous attention and being very alert about. Secondly, we will be customizing our own flashcards where we have a male doctor and a female doctor. We have a male nurse and a female nurse. So that is something that we are going to be implementing it in our school. Third thing is, we are avoiding children to words like, or opposites like, beautiful and ugly. I don't know if you've come across any flashcard or any book, but generally, again, a beautiful, when they say that beautiful, it's normally a girl, again, with fair skin and properly combed hair and all of that. And, ugly is a little dark skin human being, or, the hair is not shabbily combed and all of that. So these things, if we want to introduce beautiful and ugly, we are not going to use the physical, these appearances again. That is something that we are keeping an eye on. Secondly, whenever we are dividing children for activities in our classroom, we are not dividing them based on the gender. So this is something also that happens in classrooms when we are especially going for free play. Sometimes teachers are unknowingly giving choices to boys like, okay, do you want to go play out, or do you want to play with construction toys? And for girl, it could be, do you want to read a book, or do you want to go to the dress up area and do the kitchen and play with the kitchen set? So these are again unintentionally happening. So we are going to be very careful about the choices that we give our children in terms of curriculum. Right. Again, some of the things that we are also going to do is, the second point is that I want teachers to check on their own gender bias. Okay, for example, I have always seen in my life when I was a child, I have always seen my father going to an office and mother cooking at home. So
Mm-hmm.
this could somewhere have impact on what I'm talking or in my interactions. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
I have three questions that I want every listener to reflect on, to check your own gender biases. The first question is, what is a significant quality of a girl? That's the first. Second question is, what is the significant quality of a boy? And my third point is, whatever your answers for the first two questions may be, are you bringing in those thoughts and biases while interacting with your children in your classroom?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so these three questions are something that all the teachers in my team will be reflecting upon to check their own gender bias. Okay, we will be keeping a very close eye on all our teaching aids and on books, and not introducing to unwanted concepts.
Mm-hmm.
We are also trying to use gender neutral language instead of in our classroom. So instead of saying, say, good morning boys and girls, I would prefer using good morning everyone, or
Mm-hmm.
good morning children. Right. Why do we kind of again have gender there? It's not required. My point is, it's
Mm-hmm.
not required. Again, when it comes to communication with children, teachers have to be very mindful of the pet names that they give children. Okay,
Like
first of all,
nicknames.
we
Mm-hmm.
should, yeah, we should not give pet names to children. We should call them by their first name. But I have observed that generally for a boy, the pet names are like champ and all of that, and for girls it is
Mm.
darling, honey. Again, we are
Princess
trying
is a common one too,
princess.
yeah. And that's why
Yeah,
it's
again,
encouraging that, yeah.
yeah. And again, unknowingly, we are kind of giving a message that the boys are a little stronger and the
Mm.
girls are a little kind of softer by telling them
Mm-hmm.
honey, sweetheart. First of all, we should not give pet names, but even if you feel that you want to give pet names to children, please be mindful, keep a very gender neutral, you know,
Yeah, that's a good point.
pet names.
Yeah.
So again, another thing that I have also observed when it comes to behavior or addressing behaviors in classrooms, even the research says that when the teacher has to rectify a behavior of a boy, mainly it happens in front of everyone. Vis-a-vis when it comes to kind of addressing behavior of a girl, it
Mm-hmm.
mostly it is rectified one on one.
Oh, okay. That's a really
Yeah.
interesting point. I can see that now that you've said it. I can see that now. Yeah, I can see that happening a lot in the settings I used to work in.
Yeah. So whatever we do, I think it has to be same. I am not a
Mm-hmm.
kind of someone who only supports girls or feminist or something like that, but I'm saying whatever we do has to be same for both the genders.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are trying to rectify a boy's behavior in common, that's your strategy, then it has to be the consistent and same even for
Mm-hmm.
girls.
Yeah. That's a really,
Yeah.
really good point. Really reflecting on everything that you do and thinking, is it is it fair? Is it on both genders? And yeah, that's such a good point, just thinking like it is very much steeped in gender bias because we say girls are not naughty, girls don't do that. So actually then we don't want anyone to see that a girl has been naughty. We then
Yeah.
make sure that we tell her in private that that's not how we do things. But with boys, we kind of make an example of the fact that this boy has done something that was wrong, and it's kind of okay because we almost expect boys to do things that are against the rules, I guess, and against the norm, probably.
Yeah. Again, it happens even during subjects. We generally sometimes unknowingly, just pass out comments like, boys are always good at sports, or boys are always good at math, girls are always good at writing, and being an organizer in the group, and being a note taker in the group, all of this. So again, as teachers, we have to be mindful of such comments. There are some comments that I think we all have heard, or at least experienced it, where we say that don't cry like a girl,
Yeah.
and unknowingly we are saying that, okay, boys are not allowed to cry, and boys are not allowed to express their emotions.
And even if we're not actually saying that, and if we don't believe in that, again, it's that subconscious messaging, isn't it, that's coming out for the children.
Yeah.
And it's
So
just seen in society everywhere, really.
yeah, or they say don't cry like a baby. I mean, even for a kindergarten child, we say don't cry like an infant, or don't cry like a baby. And again, we are giving them message that it's not okay to cry. And then as educators, we talk about emotion regulation and all of that.
Yeah, and talk to them about the fact that it's okay to cry, it's okay to show your emotions. And what if our friend cries? We need to make sure that we comfort them and understand them and talk to them about what's wrong, instead of essentially tell them off, which is what we're kind of encouraging, really, by our own behaviors. I guess it's all about thinking about our values and the school values or the setting values, and as an educator thinking, am I living up to these values every single day, every single thing that I say, every interaction? Is it living up to these values?
Yeah, and I would say that at least if there is an awareness like this, so we have generally in early years, there are two teachers in the classroom. So if they are listening, if the teachers are listening to this podcast, and they see that, okay, there are certain things that we are unknowingly doing it in our classroom, and we want to kind of not do it, we can always take help of a co-teacher or a colleague and ask them to observe that if you come across any such comments and any such things that I'm doing where I'm not gender neutral, please let me know. Because all these things are so deep rooted in our system that it is a very natural behavior of us. Like any child is crying, it's a very natural instinct for parent or the teacher to say, okay, don't cry like a girl now. Or if the girl has fallen down, we say, okay, be strong like your brother, or be strong like other boys. So we have to just be aware and mindful of it. And sometimes in the flow, when we are taking class or when we are interacting one-on-one with children, we do forget these things. So I think having that collaboration with your co-teacher, I think will make a lot of difference.
Hiya! Just quickly, I wanted to ask a favour from all of the listeners and viewers. It would really help this podcast if you subscribe on the platform you are listening or watching on. This will help the Voice of Early Childhood podcast to continue putting out thought-provoking and reflective episodes with a range of guests. And if you are enjoying listening to this podcast, please do share it with someone else who you think would love it too. And of course, as always, we encourage you to share your voice too. If you have reflections, thoughts, and comments, please do share this episode on social media with your comments and tag the Voice of Early Childhood. Let's keep these thought-provoking discussions going. Thank you. I'll let you get back to the episode now. Yeah, definitely. It's all about being open to that professional challenge, isn't it? And creating that safe space to say it's okay to be challenged. And if I challenge you, I'm just challenging your your professionalism, your work, making sure that we are all living up to our values. I'm not challenging, I'm not judging you as a person, as your character. I'm just supporting you. And the same, it should be reciprocal. Anyone who is a leader should also be challenged. And it's about creating that comfortable environment, isn't it?
Yeah. And also one more thing that I would like to add, that again, when we are doing family as a concept, now the family structures have changed. For example, now there are a single mother, single father, two fathers, two mothers. So the structures have pretty much changed. So we can't be sticking to a concept in early years where we say that a father, a mother, a brother, and a sister comprises a family. We have to be very mindful of these things, especially in early years. I have done it as a teacher. I've realized my mistake. I've done it as a school leader, where we have celebrated Father's Day, we've celebrated Mother's Day, not realizing that there is a child in our classroom who either doesn't have a father or who doesn't have a mother, and what does that child go through, right? So instead of having specifically Father's Day, Mother's Day, at least I'm saying let's avoid celebrating it in school, rather have a family day or a get together day. So where even if the child sometimes, at least in India, what happens is sometimes the child is not staying with the father and mother, but this child is staying with grandparents. So when you say that only father and mother can come to an event, the grandparents cannot attend it. And it's so confusing for a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old to understand that everyone else's father, mother are part of the event, why only my grandparents are here. So I think we have to be more mindful of the society is changing, the society is being more open, and hence I think as educators we have to also kind of evolve and kind of change with the society, and definitely. Just I think aligning to what is happening in the child's life is so important.
Definitely. And it's such a good example that you give. I love that in your article and throughout this podcast episode, you're constantly giving real life examples. That's exactly what we need to be able to influence that change and really reflect. So like you say, it doesn't, if we stop celebrating Mother's Day and Father's Day, it's almost a little bit miserable, because we think, oh, well, what are we left with? But you're right, the children can celebrate those in their own homes. If they do have a mother and a father, they can celebrate Mother's and Father's Day if they want to. And that's absolutely fine to have those conversations if they bring them to us, and openly talk about these things. But like you say, if we're encouraging something more open and inclusive, like a family day, then everyone can be involved. It doesn't mean we can't talk about Mother's Day and Father's Day, and we can't appreciate that for other people, other families. We can say, I celebrate Mother's Day, but I don't celebrate Father's Day, for instance. Or in our family, this is what we do. I guess it's keeping those conversations open anyway, and not kind of saying, oh, let's not talk about Mother's Day because it's not appropriate anymore. Actually, we still need to have these conversations.
Yes. So we can talk about in the classroom, but not in a big level where we are inviting mothers to school, but just having the conversation about it. And if you want to do an event, I think doing a family day is an right and appropriate and more inclusive event is what I feel. I think the point that is also just one. I'm sorry. The point that is also raised is aligning our curriculum with what children are seeing. I'll again give you an example. So what happens is, of course, as educators, we take inspirations and ideas from, websites that are there all over the world. And we are talking about, say, fire safety and fire engine and, fire truck and all of this. And I go into a classroom and the teacher is introducing this topic. And the teacher has taken a lot of ideas from the website that was, I think, based in US. So unknowingly and very unintentionally, the teacher has taken and very proudly teaching the helpline number or the emergency number of US and not India. Right. So again, I think it's important that educators start. Yes, there are different seasons, there are different things that are happening all over the world, but I think aligning with the things that children are seeing in their life, I think that's more important. Again, India has only 3 seasons: summer, winter, monsoon. But because of Western influence and the Western resources, we've started introducing fall, spring, autumn, all of these. So I think aligning our curriculum with the culture, with the seasons, with the country that the school is in, I think makes a lot of difference. And if the teacher is very mindful of these things, all the aspects can be kind of taken care of.
So I guess there's no point really learning about the four seasons to a young child, especially, the younger ones in early years, like 2-year-olds, really going through every single season and saying, like, this is what happens, and we're going to do everything associated with this season, which is happening now, but actually is happening now in other parts of the world, but not where you are, where the child is, where that context is for them. And so bringing everything in, starting from the child's context, I guess that's the main thing, isn't it? And then bringing in other experiences, international experiences, experiences from other countries and other people have, bringing them in when you have already got that foundation of this is what we see in the world around
Yes.
us first. This is what we see in our country. This is what we see in our community. And then we can start saying other things happen that are different. Yeah, like scaffolding learning, really, isn't it? Like Vygotsky talks about.
Yeah, like building up of first, I think the foundation, and then building upon that, I think we can always do, take ideas and then say that, okay, America, this is how, these are the seasons of America, these are the seasons of, in UK, these are the things in Europe. So first exploring our own country and then, going globally. So we have a famous educator of India, Mr. Sugata Mitra, and he says, always give your children global boots with local roots. So that is something that I have kind of kept with me. I've heard it in one of the conferences where he was speaking. And since then, this has become like my motto as an educator, that yes, I want to introduce my children to the global world, but first start with the local roots. Okay,
Yeah.
let them be very connected to the local roots, and that is what will transpire into the curriculum of Pratna World School, where I'm working on the curriculum right now.
And that's a fantastic phrase to remember. It's brilliant, like you say, to really kind of guide your practice. And it goes for celebrating festivals as well. We often kind of see different festivals, celebrations being brought into our settings and teaching children about these. Again, we need to start from, the children in our settings. So is there a child in our setting, in our school, that celebrates Lunar New Year, or are we teaching them about something that nobody has come across yet? And of course, it's important to expose them to these things, but let's first begin with what everybody has either experienced or what some children in particular are experiencing, and then we can connect to that child and that family and make them feel welcome and also part of this experience. So we're not kind of teaching them about it, they can teach us about it.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to go back to a few other things that you mentioned. Actually, this links to educational materials in terms of, you were saying a lot about different books not being representative or portraying and very gender biased kind of perceptions of boys, girls, beauty, things like that. And I know that things have really changed in the recent years around really challenging gender stereotypes, gender biases, and also, inequalities around different races and backgrounds and things like that. And is that there are companies out there that are working to change things, but I guess, not quick enough, and things are not changing too drastically. There are still resources that are outdated that exist out there, and unfortunately there are still outdated resources that keep being produced. So it's, I think, our responsibility as educators to approach these companies and tell them this is not appropriate. Instead of just saying we won't be buying these resources, actually, why? Tell them that we, like you say, you're making your own flashcards in your school. Actually,
Yes.
these organizations, these companies, they need to work with you, they need to work with educators to say there's something that is missing here for you and you have to make your own resources. Actually, we are a company that make resources. Why don't you share with us, what have we done wrong? What are we missing? It's up to both sides, isn't it, to be very, like you were saying earlier, very open to challenge, that criticism in terms of really making change happen, not criticism in terms of, you've done something wrong, I won't be engaging with you. It's more about how can we change things in the positive, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's more important. I think just being kind of aware of what you are showing to children, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's more important. Like, is there anything wrong? Is there anything kind of bias? I remember watching a video. This, I think I saw it on a social media, and this was a conversation between a daughter and a mother, and I
Mm-hmm.
think they're reading some book. She must be around 6 years old, and she asked a couple of questions that really hit me. And it said that I think she was asking, Mama, why all the structures are called man-made structures, and
Ah.
why it is not called kind of woman-made structures or
Mm-hmm.
human-made structures. It is not that the woman wouldn't be there at that time, or I'm sure she would be part of those constructing those
Mm-hmm.
structures. But I think globally the language slowly has to kind of change from man-made structures to
Mm-hmm.
human-made structures,
Yeah.
which is gender neutral. Even our his story, history is called his story. And why not
Ah, that's
her
such a good point.
story or our stories?
I've
You
never
know?
ever thought about that. You're so right. Yeah, there's so many things that are so traditional and they're just common language that we have always used and haven't questioned. And they weren't as relevant back then, in terms of gender equality. Of course, years ago, that things were not equal. And in some societies now, even, it's not the same as in, I guess, I was going to pose this question to you in a second about India in its context specifically. But yeah, we don't question things even now enough, like you say. Um, so yeah, constantly reflecting on everything. And as you were saying that, in terms of history and man-made structures, there are other things that I was thinking of as well that are commonly used. I feel like after our conversation, I'm going to keep like thinking of all these things and think, oh no, I just said this, and actually this doesn't sound right anymore. But I was going to ask in terms of different cultures and different contexts and of parts of the world. So we spoke about all of this that we have on the podcast in India and in those communities that are surrounding you as well, and in the countries that are surrounding India. Are you finding, because you are very much in touch with the Western societies as well, Europe, US, the UK, you have lots of contacts and you communicate constantly with and network with people. Are you finding that in your context
Mhm.
things are not as kind of pushing forward as in the Western world?
Yeah, I would say that things are changing, things are evolving,
Mm-hmm.
but not at the pace where, of course, Western countries are changing. I'll give you an example. Like 10 years before in India, yes, many women were working. I'm not saying, but there was still this mindset that, okay, our daughters or our daughter-in-laws should not work for
Mm.
any other person. And the wife would always kind of compromise her career to take care of the children,
Yeah.
and husband would still continue. These things were very common earlier, but now things are changing. There are so
Mm-hmm.
many husbands who are taking care of the house or who are taking care of the babies, and kind of working from home, or maybe giving up their careers. But I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, it's the family's choice. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that what happened previously and what is happening now, anything is right or wrong, but I think the choice should be given to the family setup.
Mm-hmm.
So that awareness is now kind of coming in. I think
Mm.
teachers are also getting more aware now about the family structures. So they are very mindful. Like, earlier parents, we would not know whether it's a single parent, single child, or, single parent, and all of those details. But now I think even teachers are being mindful that, okay, if the child is having a single parent, then we have to be mindful. If the child is adopted, then we have to be mindful
Mm-hmm.
of it. So these awareness is happening, and the changes are happening, the evolvement is there, but I think the pace is a little slower, and it will kind of happen. So of
Mm-hmm.
course some rural areas in India, still have male dominant society. But like I said, especially in urban, it is more of kind of getting equal, but rural still has a little bit of male dominant society even today.
And I guess it's difficult because it's very much steeped in religion as well, isn't it? And that, of course, this is a conversation beyond this podcast episode. That's very complicated, but it's just something that's important to consider, isn't it? In terms of being respectful for the family's views, preferences, religion, their culture, and then thinking how do we ensure that we are being equal and the messages that we put across, because sometimes there may be things that the family say or do that you think this is not right, I want to challenge this. And as an educator, it's really difficult because you don't want to tell the family what to do, you don't want to tell the parents how to parent their children, but you do have that duty of care. And it's so important to ensure that you are not promoting, like what we're talking about, gender bias, etc., and inequalities.
Right. Yeah, I think it's just about being aware and mindful, and most importantly, respectful when you are communicating with children. If as educators we take care of these three things, I think rest curriculum will definitely fall in place. But I think it's more about just being kind of aware, mindful, and respectful to children.
Yeah, definitely. Even if their kind of circumstances may be different from the other children, you still need to be kind of sensitive to that and like you said, respectful. So I was just going to quickly ask you another thing. When you mentioned about famous figures and representing genders equally there, you said, do you mean like an equal measure and equal roles too? Like you said before, if we speak about a male scientist that you introduce, that's a famous figure, also introduce a female one as well. Yeah, is that what you mean?
Yes. Yeah. Like in India, I'll give you an example that there was a time that, of course, we all would know who are the members of male cricket team, but we would hardly know the name of female cricket team.
You
So
don't
I
even
think
hear
when
that.
yeah so I think when we are introducing children to the sportsmen or any sports, I think it's again important that we kind of show them both the genders. Okay, I'm not saying that you show only female or you show only male, but introduce them to both the genders. Even when you are selecting storybooks for your classroom, or you are saying telling stories to children, just be mindful of the authors, that you have a mix of male and female authors. If you're inviting guest speakers in your classroom, again have a balance of male and female both. So these
Yeah.
things are what we need to keep in mind in our curriculum.
And I think it goes to the same as in terms of when you were talking about nicknames or pet names. So, you said about being mindful around that and not really trying not to use nicknames or pet names with children. It's maybe it depends on your school and setting, it's not as professional, but it's important to then not kind of put those gender biases on children. That's the main thing to be
Yes.
mindful of. But then think, what if children do want to be called a certain nickname? What if their parents do have pet names? And again, like we said, be respectful to that. If that's how they do things, then that's fine. It's just not encouraging that yourselves, isn't it? It's not saying never use that. If a family call their girl princess, and that's what they want you to call her, well, okay, maybe sometimes you can do that, if they like that, if that's what they prefer, if that's what your school says it's okay, then it's not about kind of categorically saying we will not say anything but your name, but actually just being mindful of if we are encouraging those things and doing it with other children.
Yeah, I think if you're doing it for one child, you have to do it for everyone. I think that is important. Or I think to be on a safe, it is also to have a policy of not calling each other with pet names at all. Because if we are calling children with pet names, there are high chances that children will also call us with pet names, and which you might not like it as an educator. So that could also be one perspective to it. So either have a rule that, okay, we can always tell parents and make them aware that we have a no pet name policy in our school, and we want to call the children respectfully with their name, so that everyone feels equal and no one feels kind of, if I'm making one person special, I will ensure that everyone feels special. So I think to be on a safe bet, because you might call one child a princess, but and that is your understanding with the parent or with the child, but the other child wouldn't know why the teacher is calling her the princess and not to me.
Yeah.
So I think at that moment I feel explaining it to the parents is a little easier than
To the
explaining
children
to the children.
and trying to balance that, because like I say, if they were to call us pet names and we were not comfortable, actually it's not promoting equality there, is it? And choice and almost like freedom of speech, I guess, in a way. So yeah, that's a really interesting thought, and not just reflecting on ourselves, but actually those wider systems put in place and challenging those and saying, have we got a system in place? Have we got a policy on this to ensure that everyone feels equal? There's a lot to think about, really, not just yourself, and reflection on that. I was going to say it would be brilliant if you could remind us again of you mentioned the three things that teachers should be checking in on their own gender biases. If you can
Yes.
say those three again, and I've got one point to make on one of them as well, and I think it would be a good place to kind of wrap things up as well.
Okay, lovely. So, yes, before you do any changes in your classroom, any changes in your curriculum, teaching aids, I think first it is important to check your own thought process and understand that, okay, am I biased against a gender? Okay, so that's why you need to ask yourself three questions. First is, what according to you, what is the significant quality of a boy? First question. Second question is, what is the significant quality of a girl? And third question is, whatever your answers of the first two questions are you taking those thoughts or those preferences into your interactions with children?
So I think it's I was
sorry,
I was just going to quickly say it's probably important to think of these. So what is the significant quality of a boy? The first thing that you think of, just that natural thing, so write it down, because then that will give you that real, almost subconscious bias, if you can kind of catch that, because straight away you might be thinking, oh yeah, actually we need to be careful here. You can't say loud or energetic
naughty.
necessarily, or and the things like that. Exactly, yeah, because you might be thinking of a specific group of boys, or one specific child, one specific boy in your class.
Yes.
And you think of that. So I guess when you're going through those two first questions, what's the very, very first thing that comes to mind that is unfiltered, unprocessed, just instantly, and it may be almost like you may feel bad for thinking that. So that's why you can really, that's how you can really challenge your own subconscious biases, if although they are subconscious, but sometimes you can kind of catch them.
Yes, yes. So that's why I think it's important to reflect on the first two questions, the answers of the first two questions, and then see that, okay, any of this thoughts are they interfering or reflecting in your conversation with children in your classroom?
Yeah,
so then you will get to
fantastic.
know whether you are unknowingly gender biased or not.
Yeah, Greshma, thank you. I think those kind of examples, like you gave, those three important things to check in with yourself, and all of those different examples that you've given throughout our conversation, like I said before, they're fantastic because they are real examples, real actionable things, real things to reflect on and to think, am I doing this? Or how does this look like in my classroom? What are my reflections on this? What are my thoughts and what are my biases? And this is what you've also got in the article as well. So I'll point all the listeners and viewers to Greshma's article as well, where you can read all about the different, really different things that we've discussed here, kind of a little bit more summarized, and given some examples there, which are essentially, some of them are kind of those critical considerations and reflections, and some of them are a bit more like tips as well, to be honest.
Yes.
And I think they'll definitely spark lots of thinking and reflection.
Yes, I think one closing statement that I
Hmm.
generally mention when I'm talking about gender equality, because I feel that sometimes unknowingly I kind of offend or defend, kind of offend teachers. So all the teachers, educators who are listening to this podcast, my intention is to not hurt anyone, but just spread awareness. And like I always mention in my sentence, that whatever as teachers we are doing, if we are making any mistakes, it is not intentional or not knowingly. All of these happens because very unintentionally and unknowingly, because it's deep rooted into our system. It's the way, the things that we've been listening and the way we have been brought up. So I'm here only to spread awareness and not to kind of hurt anyone's feelings or emotions. So that would be my kind of closure line.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Really is about challenging our own thoughts, challenging each other, only for the benefit, only for the benefit of the children and the families, and our own pedagogy. And it's all about reflective practice, isn't it? And I think it's great to close and on another statement. We've got lots of closing statements, but we've not closed the podcast episode yet. But there's so many golden snippets here, golden nuggets. I really like the phrase that you mentioned. Always give your children global boots with local roots. Can you just remind us who the famous educator from India?
Uh, it was Dr. Suganda Mitra, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing his name correctly, but he's done a very famous research on the hole in the wall, research. Please read about him. You can even Google about it. I think I should mention his name in the article so that,
Hmm.
more and more people uh, would be aware of it. But he gave this amazing statement, and I've heard this almost 5 6 years back, but it still stays with me, and it's like my guideline. So
Hmm.
it's like giving children global boots with local roots, and it only means that always start things locally, introduce children to local stuff first and then globally.
Hmm. Fantastic. Thank you. And yeah, we'll share that. We'll share a link in the article before we publish. Yeah. So
Yes.
fantastic. Thank you so much, Greshma. It's been brilliant having you on and hearing your own reflections and your experiences. And I'm sure that all of the listeners and viewers will get lots out of it. And thank you for everyone who has listened and is watching this podcast episode.
Great. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. And you're doing an amazing work, and, spreading so much positive vibes and learning in this world, especially in the field of early childhood education,
Mhm.
which not generally kind of is given a lot of importance. So thank you so much for doing the amazing work.
Thank you, Greshma.